Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Three Mouseketeers, the sibling podcast that understands your Disney addiction. I am your brother host, Jared, and I'm with me, as always.
I'm Amanda.
And I'm Emily, the youngest sibling.
So this is going to be another special episode that we're doing. Emily, you had a trip to Disneyland and also California Adventure. Since we had released our episodes of our trip, we wanted to have your trip also so that we can kind of gauge like what's the better trip to take and who had a better trip, I guess. I had a better trip. That's it. We did it. Short episode.
Okay. Well, they're definitely two completely different parks and two completely different worlds. It's hard to compare them because they're so night and day different. But I am excited to talk about my trip and for everyone to hear how it went, because this was actually my first real Disneyland trip. I've been once before, but it wasn't for a full day and it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. So this was the first planned out multi-day Disneyland trip for me.
So how many days total were you in the parks?
So we went for 2 days. Day one, we went to California Adventure, and day two, we went to Disneyland Park. And we had a day in between the two where we went to downtown Disney, as well as some of the hotels we explored, and also Trader Sam's.
Okay. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about your first day?
On day one, we went to California Adventure, and that was also our arrival day into California. So we went straight from the airport to the hotel and checked in, and then walked to the park. And I guess I could briefly mention the hotel that we stayed in, because we stayed at a Good Neighbor Hotel, and it was the Sheraton Park Hotel, Anaheim. And it was about a 10-minute walk. I feel like we're pretty fast walkers. So let's say like 15 minutes for an average family. And it was a straight shot to Disney. It was a really nice hotel. I could see that like it needs a little bit of updating, but for the price and the location, I would stay there again for sure. And it was really good service. So we went straight from the hotel to California Adventure. So we arrived about 10 o'clock, and this was our first time using the Max Pass system. And if you don't know what Max Pass is, it's Disneyland's Fast Pass system, which is completely different than Disney World's. So instead of booking your Fast Passes in advance, you pay $15 per person per day if you want to add the Max Pass. You don't have to. And whenever you step foot in the park, that's whenever you can make your very first Fast Pass selection. So stepping into the park, we made our first Fast Pass for Guardians Mission Breakout. And I know neither of you have rode Guardians Mission Breakout yet, right?
No.
Not yet.
Mostly because I have not been to the parks in California.
Right. So this was our first time riding it as well. And I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, because if y'all have listened to the Best and Worst episode, we all really love Tower of Terror. And this is like the remodel of Tower of Terror. But it was amazing. Like, honestly, it gives Tower of Terror a run for its money. And my husband actually says that he likes it more. It was so good. Y'all, I really hope that y'all get out to the California parks and can do it. Jared, I really think that you would like it a lot.
I'm sure I
And
probably would.
And so if you had the opportunity to bring that ride to Florida, would you want them to do that?
No, do not touch my Tower of Terror. I will kill you.
See, I went into it like saying, I swear if they bring this to Florida, I'm going to be so mad. But we know that they're not going to bring it to Florida because they're building a Guardians coaster there. So I think Tower of Terror is safe for the time being. And I would like to leave Guardians Mission Breakout in California so I can do it there, but still have Tower of Terror in Florida. But I mean, they did an amazing job with it. And there's some surprises in there. Like, you're expecting the same ride system, like the same drop sequence and everything as Tower of Terror. And they completely changed it up so that you're like not expecting what's coming at all.
Yeah.
So really fun, and I highly recommend that ride.
Because
So that was our
they haven't updated any of the mechanics on the ride. They just did a different sequence and they just put the new exterior up and kind of changed the theme a bit. But other than that, the ride mechanically is the same.
Yeah, drop wise, yes, but the drop sequence is different, like I said. And also the scenes, it's way more immersive whenever the doors open. It's not just like black or looking out to the park. Like every time the doors open, it's a Guardian scene and it's like a party. Like there's loud music playing and like you see a scene for a good little bit before you're dropping up or back down. It's really cool. I would say watch a video of it, but honestly, that would probably spoil it, and y'all should just go do it.
Then don't watch the Imagineering story.
Yeah,
Now,
but even that, I watched the Imagineering story, and it doesn't do it justice, I guess.
Okay.
can I ask you a question about the Max Pass system?
Yeah.
Is that the only opportunity to get fast passes? Is if you have the Max Pass?
No, so they do still have the paper fast pass system for now. I kind of think it's going to be going away. But so if you don't want to pay for Max Pass, you can still do paper fast pass. But after our 2 days there, I would really, really recommend Max Pass. It's not a huge, like, money wise, it's not the biggest investment. And I really think it was worth it because you're not storming all over the park trying to get your paper fast passes before they run out. You can see the time for the next fast pass and make that selection, and you get a new fast pass every 90 minutes or if you've already rode the ride. So if you ride a ride before your 90 minutes is up, you can make your next selection.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really worth it, I think.
I think the only way that it becomes a nuisance is if you have like a party of 10 or something.
Well, if you do that and all of your tickets are linked together, which you can do, then you can just make them all from that one account on the phone, which you use the Disneyland app. I guess I should have mentioned that to make the fast passes. So if one person links all of the tickets to their account, then it's easy that way where you can just go in and make all the fast passes for one ride from that one person's.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more along the lines of the expense that it adds on top
Oh,
for a party
right.
of
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
Well, if it's only $15, that's $150. So it's not insane.
I still think it would be worth it, honestly.
I mean, that's cheaper than what Universal charges for one of their Express Pass or whatever they call it.
Yeah. Now, I have used that before, and that is a pretty good system. At least whenever I used it back in like 2007.
It is, but it's super expensive.
It is expensive.
It's a lot more than $15.
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess another thing that I should mention is we went to Disneyland the weekend of New Year's. So New Year's was the first. We went the second and the fourth were our park days. And honestly, it was pretty crowded, but the Max Pass is what like got us on all of the rides that we wanted to go on, the big rides that ended up with 3-hour waits. We walked right on because we had the Max Pass. So especially if you're going at a busy time of the year, I would not do it without the Max Pass.
It's a good tip.
Good tip.
Yeah, I think so.
So what else did you do in California Adventure?
So as soon as we got there, we went straight for Incredicoaster while we were waiting on our Fast Pass time to come up. And this used to be called California Screamin'. And the last time I went on it, that's what it still was. But now this is the Incredible Overlay. And I really liked it a lot. And while we were waiting in line for that, we got the Jack Jack's Num Num cookies. Did y'all have those in Disney World? Because I know they have them there too.
No.
I did not know they had those.
Okay, they're at Hollywood Studios in Disney World, but at Disneyland, they have a stand for them that's practically in the Incredicoaster line. So we got the cookie while we waited in line, and that's another good tip. You should do that.
So they're num num.
Those cookies are the best things. Like one of my favorite things we ate on our whole trip. They're huge. Like you have to share it. Well, I kind of wish that I hadn't shared it, but you should share it because they're big.
Well, let's be honest. You don't have to share anything.
Yeah, that's you probably if you like sweets, don't share it, but it is a lot. Another ride that's really, really popular and we definitely saw 3-hour waits for while we were there is the Radiator Springs Racers, which is kind of like the Disneyland equivalent of Test Track, but better themed. And it's all Cars themed, which Cars Land is the most like cool, immersive place. Um, like I know kids would absolutely love it, but us as adults, that's the coolest land in all of Disneyland, in my opinion. It really makes you feel like you're in the movie. So we went and we actually had Max Pass to Radiator Springs Racer. And if we had not had that, there is no way that I would have stood in a 3-hour line for that ride. Because no matter how immersive and cool that it is, it's a very short ride. And 3 hours for that is like too much.
Isn't that one of the newest additions to the park?
Um, it's newer,
I think it's been
but
there for several years.
yeah, it's not like it's like brand new. It's been years that the
Right.
Cars Land has been open and this ride specifically has been open, but it is one of the most popular rides in Disneyland. And I mean, there's good reason for that. But like I said, it's a pretty short ride and 3 hours is just ridiculous. So I think if you want your kids to do that ride and experience that, you really need to get on first thing in the morning as soon as you walk through the park and make that your first Max Pass selection for the day.
Yeah. So it opened in 2012. So
Okay.
it's, right there, 7, 8 years. Um, yeah, that does kind of surprise me that it's still 3-hour waits.
Yeah, I mean, it's because, it's cars and that's the most kid-friendly land in California Adventure, I would say. So, of course, parents really want their kids to experience that.
So in Cars Land, is the Radiator Springs Racers the only ride there?
No, there's actually two other rides as well, but they're not e-ticket attractions. There's I can't remember the name of either of them, honestly, but there's like a Luigi car spin ride and then also a Mater car spin type ride. Like they're both very similar, which I found pretty strange. And we only did the Luigi one, and it was cute and it was fun, and your car spins around to music and stuff, but um, Radiator Springs Racer is definitely the main one there.
Okay.
So next we ended up eating lunch at this place called Award Wieners. Okay.
That's a funny name.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's in the Hollywood Land portion of the park. And I had heard really good things about it, and that's why we decided to try it. They have these like curly cut fries, but not curly fries. I don't really know how to explain them better than that. And potato buns. And then the hot dogs are like gourmet hot dogs. It's not just like a regular hot dog that you throw some ketchup on. And it was actually really, really good. Like one of our favorite meals of the trip for sure. And they had like a really nice shaded seating area. And of course, the weather in California was just beautiful the entire time. So we were more than happy to sit outside and eat. Yeah, and it was really good. And I definitely recommend that for like a quick lunch. It's quick service, grab and go, but it was really good. And
Interesting.
yeah, and while I'm talking about quick service, we utilized the mobile ordering system through the Disneyland app the entire time we were there. And that is also like pro tip number one. You need to utilize the mobile ordering because there were people waiting in line for like probably 30 minutes while we were already done with our meal because we mobile ordered.
Yeah, that's a very good tip because I know while I was at Disney World, I got behind people at like the quick service and they had no idea what they were doing. And sometimes the register would not work properly or their credit cards wouldn't go through or something. And it just agitated me because then I would move line and then they would get their stuff going. And then the line that I moved to would stop. And I was in line for probably like 35 minutes one time when there were only like two people in front of me.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like with this being a busy weekend, those lines for quick service and even like some of the snack places were so crazy that we would walk up and we would see the line and be like, oh no. We would mobile order, we would get our mobile order, and the person that we would have been behind in line wasn't even close to the front yet. So it's definitely very quick and easy, and I would highly suggest that.
What about any of the shows? Did you watch nighttime shows or anything?
We actually did not. I wanted to, but it was a fairly short trip. I want to go back and stay for longer. And this first day, I really wanted to see World of Color because I've heard that it's amazing and it's at California Adventure.
That's the one I
But
was going to specifically ask you about.
yes, but our flight was very early. We woke up at 2 a.m. And by the end of the night, we could not do it. We had to go back to our hotel. So we unfortunately missed it, but I've heard great things about it and we'll have to catch it next time. Before we ended up heading back to our hotel that night, we decided to have dinner at Lamplight Lounge, and we had heard really great things about it. And we actually did make a reservation for this a couple weeks in advance, but they were taking walk ups at the time as well. And this restaurant is really, really cool. It's not a very like family friendly atmosphere, I would say. It is more of a bar lounge, and most of the seating is outside, but they had like heat lamps and it was really nice and it has a beautiful view of the pier area, so the Ferris wheel and the Incredicoaster, and they're all lit up at night. And it's smaller portions, more like appetizers and drinks. So that also plays into it not really being like a family place. They did have a kids menu though, and I did see kids there, but it was just my husband and I thought it's a really romantic date night type of spot, and I would recommend it.
Okay. What if you do have kids? Would you just say skip it?
No, like I said, I saw some kids there and I saw that they had a kids menu. It's just like most of the seating is either at a bar or outside, kind of around the bar. So at night, it kind of creates a more like adult atmosphere. But there were kids there, and I would say for the view, it would probably still be worth it.
Okay. So that's the last thing you did on day one?
Yep.
Okay. Well, what about day two? What'd you do?
Okay, on day two, we went to Disneyland Park and we arrived for a rope drop at 8 a.m., which I would definitely suggest to do because in that amount of time, you can get so many rides done with little to no wait. We were able to ride so many rides with little to no wait, and they ended up having ridiculous waits the rest of the day. I would say around like 11 is when the wait started getting really long. So we were able to ride Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion Holiday, Big Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain, and then a couple other little rides too with literal walk-ons before 10 a.m.
Walk-ons in the park are so good.
So
Like
good.
it gives you this warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yes, I know. And so that was like a highlight of my day was getting to do so many classic rides and with no wait, especially seeing the times later in the day. I was so glad that we did that. So I would suggest getting up a little bit early and getting there in time for rope drop.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And We were able to do the Haunted Mansion Holiday, which Disney World does not have, and that's the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay. And it was
Yes.
one of the coolest things ever. I love Nightmare Before Christmas, and I really wish that Disney World would do it because it's like a completely different ride. They totally transform it, and we just caught the very end of it. Like they were going to be changing it back to a Haunted Mansion right after we left. So I'm really glad we were able to do that this time.
Yeah, and it's very crazy that people were really upset that they were going to mess with the Haunted Mansion, which is a staple of Disney, obviously. But once it finally opened for the first time and people wrote it, they were like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it was so cool. And it's not like it's there the whole year. It's just for a limited time, which makes it more special, but it also keeps around the original Haunted Mansion.
Right.
So we loved that. And then for our first fast pass of the day using the Max Pass system, we did the Indiana Jones ride, which is kind of similar to Dinosaur at Disney World, but so much better. And I love Dinosaur, but the Indiana Jones one was like 100 times better.
Yeah, it looks really fun.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. And of course, having the Max Pass, we maybe waited 10 minutes before we got on. So,
Well, man, that just sounds terrible, doesn't it?
yeah.
I guess the big takeaway from this whole episode is get the Max Pass.
Definitely. But if you're gonna get the Max Pass, definitely do research because there is a certain strategy to help you really utilize it. Because I knew people that were also at Disneyland and they didn't know the secrets and ended up not getting very many rides done.
Yeah, my daughter was at Disneyland the same time you were.
I know. I was actually there for a work trip, if so the people know.
Did you see them in passing at all
I
while
did
you were there?
not. I did see some of the kids that I coach, but I did not see my niece or your daughter.
Well, that's upsetting, I guess.
Yeah, it would have been fun to ride a ride with her.
So what else did you do?
So, for breakfast that morning, while the park was still empty, or relatively empty, I guess, we went to the Mint Julep bar, and there's actually a fun picture on our Instagram and Facebook if you want to see the Mickey beignets that we had. And I would definitely recommend it, but the line was insane. So, of course, I would recommend mobile ordering. And you can go up and get a bag of beignets. So, we got 6, and they give it to you in like a white bag, and you shake it up to get the powdered sugar all over it. And then they have mint juleps there as well, which were really good. So, I would recommend mint julep bar, a good sugary breakfast to start out your day.
Well, I mean, that's the best way to start out your day.
Especially at Disney. I would also like to mention that as soon as we got to the park that day, Connor and I headed straight for Galaxy's Edge to try to ride Smuggler's Run. And I would not recommend doing that because the ride line for Smuggler's Run, you couldn't even see the end of it. It wrapped around the entire park and was at least 3 hours long. And then we went back later in the day and ended up riding it in less than 45 minutes.
Wow, that like as soon as it opens, it's extremely long.
Yes, it was the craziest thing ever. We walked back there and we looked at that line and we were like, no. So we went and rode all those other rides in the amount of time that we still wouldn't have been even halfway through the line for Smuggler's Run.
Maybe people were confused and thought it was Rise of Resistance.
I would not be surprised because I can go ahead and briefly touch on Smuggler's Run and just say that I was so, so, so disappointed.
Really? I liked it.
Okay, but Connor and I had 2 literal 2-year-olds as our engineers.
Oh, well, then there's your problem right there.
Yes. And I don't know. I loved Galaxy's Edge. I thought it was so cool and so immersive, and it was one of my favorite things that Disney has done. But the ride was disappointing to me. And I know Rise of the Resistance, if I had been able to ride that, if it had been open, I would not be disappointed. But I was a little bit with Smuggler's Run.
Yeah, so with Smuggler's Run, I see what they did and see where they wanted to go and making it interactive. But I mean, then you're falling into exactly what you fell into, in a sense of you have small children who are not going to do it properly, and then you're going to lose out on the experience.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I think that I had mentioned that the 2-year-olds were our engineers, and I misspoke. We were the engineers, the 2-year-olds were the pilots.
oh, that's even worse.
Yeah, that's I feel like I should have mentioned that because 2-year-olds as engineers would have been fine because all we did was push buttons in the back. But no,
Yeah,
they
but
were
they wouldn't
steering
have
our
pushed buttons for
whole
very long.
Millennium Falcon.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
we would see the buttons light up and they would just sit there staring at the buttons, and Connor and I were sitting there like, push the buttons.
push the buttons and steer, but they're kids, they
Yeah.
don't know.
They did not know.
My daughter, whenever we rode not Rise of Resistance, we rode the Smuggler's Run at Disney World, and she got pilot. And that was okay. I mean, we made it all the way through, but
Yeah.
she was also not pushing the button every time it lit up. So she's 8.
Yeah,
I can
exactly.
imagine kids younger than that, and how they will just not do anything. So
Exactly. But we thought that the queue to the ride was amazing. And like I said, Galaxy's Edge as a whole was amazing. And we actually ate lunch at Docking Bay 7, and it was really good. And we built a droid, and that was an amazing experience. We should do a more in-depth talk about that in one of our episodes.
yeah, maybe we will.
Yeah, because it was a very, very cool experience. And now I have a little droid at my house that my dogs are terrified of.
Even better.
Yeah.
So did you get to go to Oga's Cantina while you were there?
Yeah, we did. And it was really great. It was very crowded, which I had been hearing, so I prepared myself for that. But I was kind of ripped off. I got the carbon freeze and was expecting it to come out with the dry ice and bubbling because I had seen so many videos and pictures of that. And it came out just in a regular glass with some boba balls at the bottom. And it was not fizzing. And I was really disappointed.
You should have asked them why.
Well, see, we thought maybe we were mistaken and that wasn't actually the one that was supposed to have that. But then after we left, we looked it up and we were like, okay, we were right. Like, we really were ripped off.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, so we had that, and we also had the blue milk with the cookie. And then we also had the I can't remember what it's called, but it's the Jello, like it's a snack. It's the Jello with the popping bubbles and Pop Rocks in it, and that was actually my favorite thing that we had there.
Oh, that's
I don't
really
think
cool.
they had that at Disney World.
I think that they do.
I think they do. The menu is very confusing if you're looking at it. So, yeah. I think they did. I think I remember seeing something similar to that.
Yeah, that was our favorite thing. It was really good.
And what did you think about Pirates? Because I know you said you rode it. Is it totally different than Disney World? Is it better, worse?
Okay, it's not totally different. I will say it's better, and it's way longer. And there's a lot of different scenes. There are some that are very similar to Disney World, but then there's additional scenes that Disney World does not have. And I think because of the length of it and some of the added scenes, it is way better than Disney World. Okay, not way better because I do love Disney Worlds, but it's better.
I don't know. Seeing videos of Shanghai makes me really want to go to Shanghai to ride Pirates.
Is that one different?
It's completely different.
Interesting.
Watch some videos
Family
of it.
trip.
Yeah. We also actually rode Mr. Toad's Wild Ride because I was like, okay, this is a classic ride. We have to ride this. It is the weirdest ride. Like, do y'all know the kind of theme of that ride?
Yes.
It's weird, right?
Um.
Like
You
you go to
die and
hell.
go to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Connor and I were literally sitting there at the beginning and we were like smiling, and all of a sudden that part comes up and both of us just got real serious and like looked at each other and just like kept looking at each other so confused the rest of the ride.
I mean, it wouldn't be a wild ride if you didn't go to hell. So,
It just doesn't seem like a very like Disney ride.
or maybe just everything else isn't Disney.
And Mr. Toad is the true Disney ride.
Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is the true Disney ride. It is Walt's best envision of what he wanted people to experience.
That is a conspiracy.
You're welcome.
The last thing that we did to end our day at Disneyland was dinner at Harbor Galley. And this is another quick service restaurant. And I was hoping it would be like Columbia Harbor House at Disney World because I love their lobster rolls. And it was very similar. We got lobster rolls and then they have homemade chips that go with it. And this was another go-to really good meal. The lobster rolls were pretty small, not nearly as big as Columbia Harbor House, I think, but definitely really good. There's very limited seating, so we actually ended up just sitting on a bench and people watching, which was one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, people watching can be fun. If you're just sitting around waiting either for like a ride, if you're in queue, or if you're waiting for your reservations to come available or something like that. If you just watch the people, it is pretty fun.
Yeah, it's definitely Disney World or Land is the place to do that. And we were just sitting there eating, so we were watching people walk by and people were watching us eat.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Everyone like was eyeing our food, and it was good, so I don't blame them. But and then the very last thing that we did was to get ice cream at the ice cream parlor on Main Street. And that was the best way to end our Disneyland trip. We sat like at a table by the window, and the parade, which was still the Christmas parade at the time, was actually going by while we were sitting in there. And it was kind of the picture perfect moment to end the trip with.
Oh, that's a good moment.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
What about any pins? Did you get pins while you were there? I don't know. Do you
No,
collect pins still?
no, I'm not a big pin collector. For my souvenirs from the trip, I of course built the droid, and then they actually had these. I've never seen this in Disney World, and y'all have been more recently than I have, but they have artists who are sitting in a couple of the places. I know there was one in Disney Spring, or not Disney Springs in Disneyland, but downtown Disney. And then in a shop or two at the parks, they have these people who are sitting in there and they're drawing, and it's actual cast members and like they're roped off and they're sitting there and they're doing these amazing sketches. And then they sell the sketches after they finish them. They sign them and sell them. So I actually got a really cool Steamboat Willie one that a guy was doing in downtown Disney. So that was my other souvenir for the trip that I think is like one of my favorite things I've ever gotten.
Oh, that's really cool. I don't think that I saw anything like that, but doesn't mean that it wasn't there at Disney World.
Yeah, I've never seen it at Disney World, and there were several at Disneyland, and that's something that I wish that they would put at Disney World because there were just people standing around and just watching them draw, and it was a neat experience to see that and then get to purchase something as well.
Okay. So it sounds like all in all, you had a pretty fun trip.
Definitely. I will say it's not as immersive of a feel as Disney World because Disney World is like its own city, whereas Disneyland, you walk out of the park and you're in a city outside of LA. But we had an amazing trip, and I definitely do want to go back again and maybe stay at one of the on-site hotels. And I forgot to mention, we also went to Trader Sam's, which is actually at the Disneyland Hotel. And it's like in its own tiki hut outside of the Disneyland Hotel. And for those of you who don't know, Trader Sam's is a bar. And during the day, you can bring kids, but at night, it does become 21 and over. And it is the most hilarious, like, themed tiki bar, and the bartenders, like, play along with, like, the drinks that you order. So if you order a shipwreck, lightning and thunder starts happening in the restaurant. They start ringing bells, and they start spraying everyone with a water bottle, saying the ship's going down, you're gonna get wet.
That's pretty
And
good.
it's hilarious, and there were other drinks that had, like, things like that that went along with them too. There was a drink that they light on fire, and they sing a song when they bring it to you, and it was so cool. It was very, very crowded, and we happened to, like, snatch a little round table, but there were people just standing around everywhere waiting for places.
Oh, yeah, I'm
So,
sure.
if you go, you have to expect it to be crowded if you wanna be inside at the bar, which I suggest you stay inside instead of one of the tables outside, just for the experience of being around the bartenders.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This
But
is definitely on my must-do list. They do have one at the Polynesian at Disney World, and I have to go there. I really want to go.
I know it had been on my must-do list for years and years, and I was so excited to finally get to go at Disneyland, and the theming of it is just amazing.
Well, this is just terrible. It sounds like we need to make another trip.
I know y'all need to go to Disneyland, and I need to go to Disney World. We need to reverse trips.
You can come to Disney World in May, Em, for your birthday.
Yeah.
Thanks
I
for
really
the invite,
need another
guys.
Disney World trip.
Well, you're welcome. I just don't have enough points to bring everybody this time.
That's fair.
All in all, this was an amazing trip, and I really hope everyone has the chance to make it out to Disneyland, especially if you're like a Disney World person. It's kind of fun to change it up and experience something new.
Yeah, I've only been to Disney World multiple times, so I am planning a trip for next year to one of the other parks. I'm not sure which one yet, but hopefully it'll be something pretty cool.
Sounds good. I want to go to Tokyo Disney next.
Tokyo Disney would be fun. Shanghai would be really fun. Paris would be fun.
We definitely all have to go to all of them at some point, obviously.
Yeah,
Obviously.
Disney, get at us. Let us know which one we should go to and which one you're going to pay us to go to and cover.
Right.
Hey, you never know. If the right person hears, who knows what'll happen. Anyway, thanks for listening. You can also be a part of the magic by following the show at T3M Podcast. That's T, the number 3M Podcast on all social media platforms. Leave us a 5-star written review and we'll read it on an upcoming episode. If you have an announcement that you would like to have on the show or just want to reach out to us, send us an email at t3mpodcast@gmail.com.
Have a zippity-doo-dah day.
See you real soon.